Hey everyone, welcome to this week's American Mussar Community Gathering. This is going to be our second week exploring the soul trait of order. And today we're going to be focusing on issues of planning, the aspect of order that has to do with planning. But first, we're going to begin, as we always do, with a short meditation. So please relax in your seat and close your eyes. And take in a deep breath through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own pace of inhaling and exhaling, if thoughts should move into your head, just observe them and let them pass. Like watching a car move past on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema.
Shema.
And on the exhale, listen.
Shema.
Shema, listen. And Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. And Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. I see we've been joined by Tracy and Faith, uh, and also Martin. I always love opening my eyes and seeing new people here. It's like, surprise, who's our next guest? So awesome. All right, so as we get started, now some of you were here a couple of weeks ago, and some of you were not, which is okay. But when we were here, we were talking about order, and some people talked about maybe trying an order practice, carving out a time to do X in your life. So whether you showed up, whether you were here and you did a practice, or you were here and you didn't do a specific practice, or if this is your first time or one of your first times in a while, we could just talk about, how an issue about order, orderliness, planning, spontaneity, what have you, kind of came up. So who would like to begin? Yes, Bonnie.
So I'll start. My kids, I may have mentioned this, my own ch four children tease me all the time because they say that I'm so OCD, it should be in alphabetical order and I should be CDO. So that starts it. But the piece that I work so hard on is my desktop. Everything else, I use it, I put it away, I wear the clothes, they either go in the hamper. So what I did this week is I said, when I either print something or take something out or it gets put back in the right file. It gets put back in the right electronic file or paper file. I have been somewhat successful, somewhat. What I need to do is find ways of rewarding myself, which is not food. In my case, would probably be another workout. But I need to reward myself. So I'd love to know what other people's rewards. I know this, you didn't ask for this, Greg, but I'd love to know how other people reward themselves for setting up something that and trying it, because trying is the hardest thing and giving up is the easiest.
Yeah, well, thank you, Bonnie, and great job. The key point is from wherever we are to make some progress. And you've made some progress, and that is awesome. And it's also makes sense that, I mean, it does help to change habits when we reward ourselves. So I think that's a really interesting question. Stu,
So, you asked, you'd like to know, there's a couple of things, I don't know, but I'll just tell you what works. When I make my lists, for me, I make a little line and I check them off. It just makes me happy. I've also tried stickers. I don't know how you feel about stickers, but you can get really fun stickers. And then if you do something, you put a sticker on there. I know it works for the kids. I'm kind of a big kid, so it works for me. So those are a couple of ideas, maybe. I love that I actually watched the video last week and you took on the challenge and then you reported back, Bonnie. So, I mean, that was amazing. I wanted to hear what you had done and you did great. So I think the idea is a small step. And that's what I'm trying to do is small steps. And one of the things I did with the order was, I have my list, but I've noticed that the things I don't want to do, I don't get done in that day. So I decided I'd do that thing first the next day, the thing that I
hmm,
didn't want to do, which normally I don't do for a while. I tried to tackle it the next day, and it sort of worked some days and not other days. But that was my to try to get it done out of the way because it's something that I didn't want to do. So I did that thing first the next day.
thank you, Sue. Marjorie,
If I accomplish something, Bonnie, I wish I had your problem. There are things like I try to make lists. I do. I'm pretty good now. I accomplish the lists. When I've accomplished a number of things, I'll rent a movie or, yeah, I'd say a movie, sit down and watch a show, binge a couple. I like Midsummer Murders and it's on here, hours. I limit my time, but I'll watch something. I'll buy a pair of shoes. Get rid of one and then get something else that's on sale, but and not Amazon. Okay, that's all.
thank you. Shelley,
Well, I had the exact opposite last week because, of course, I am somebody who is very orderly. And my girlfriend that I hadn't seen in a couple of years decided to stay with me and brought her dog and her daughter. And so I went from clean countertops where you could eat off of them to you name it, whatever she purchased was there. And so for me, it was just like, okay, this too shall pass. And you're here right now having spending time with the person. And regardless of all the stuff that's, in your fridge that you probably will throw out at the end because she eats it one day and then doesn't eat it the next, that's okay. Right. So I had the exact opposite of order this week. So it was a brilliant thing to experience that. And Bonnie, whenever I treat myself, I go for a manicure and pedicure. And I've even taken my younger son with me, and he now even gets his big toe nail polish on it just for the hell of it. So do something for yourself.
thank you, Shelley. Toby,
Well, I have a desktop issues as well. The rest of my house is very orderly because I have a set plan for things. One of my main goals this year is to get rid of 2/3 of everything I own. And I've started with the desktop. I'm taking like 5 classes, and I'm going to be teaching a class in March. And so I have folders for each of these little things. And I'll be darned if I can find the proper folder when the class is scheduled to come on. Like today, I couldn't find the Greg Marcus folder. So, but anyway, and
you
hopefully,
lost the Greg Marcus folder?
no, I haven't lost it. It isn't lost. It's just misplaced. Uh, I'll
You
find
misplaced the Greg Marcus
it.
folder. No, I'm just teasing you. It's okay.
Well, I'm using your text as my texts for the class that I'm teaching. Anyway, but the desktop has been a real trial because it's always in motion because I've always
Hmm.
got something going on. So what I've done is I've organized it by day. Like, you know how some people put their pills, you know, their supplements and stuff in a container for Monday. Here's Tuesday, here's Wednesday. I've done that with my folders, and I put them in a big file folder by Monday and Tuesday. That seems to clear things up, because then I only have like 6 folders, because I don't do anything on Shabbat. But and that helps. But my treat, I'm a TV series person, and that's how I treat myself, because I can't. My money is very tight, so I can't afford to buy myself anything, because that would obviously be my first choice. But I have started watching the 2nd season of Bad Sisters, and if you want to laugh out loud, it's on Apple TV. I don't have anything to do with Bad Sisters or Apple TV, but if you want to laugh yourself silly, it's a story about these 5 Irish women and their relationship. They're 5 Irish sisters. Anyway, it's hysterically funny.
Thank you, Toby.
I started the first episode of the 2nd series, and I watch only 1 episode as the reward. So that's
you.
it.
So welcome to Harry and Paul. We are talking about how order showed up with us in the last couple of weeks. A couple people, Bonnie had committed to doing a practice, and she did it, and she told us about it. So next we're going to hear from Karen.
Yeah, I'm not good at rewarding myself for anything. So I don't. But what happens when I accomplish something that I really wanted to accomplish or didn't want to accomplish, but I did? I don't know if anybody else ever feels this, but do you ever like internally, do you ever smile and get this like internal sense of relief? Like, wow, I did it. I'm so glad I did it. Didn't want to do it. I checked it off my list. Honestly, that is my reward for getting stuff done, because otherwise it just sits there, and then it bothers me because I keep coming back to it and it's not done. So that probably motivates me to get stuff done. And the other is that my order of material things is probably about as good as it's going to get. And so I look for new tips every so often when I'm falling behind there. But I have worked much harder this past year on putting in order soul traits that I want to work on. And there's some days I wake up and I'm just like, I know I'm going to need more patience today. Or I haven't done some other purposeful acts of kindness that I really want to get out and do more. Or I wasn't really good at listening to a friend or a family member or somebody, and I really want to fix that. So I've decided to put those kinds of soul traits or issues in my morning to-do list. Doesn't have to be a lot, might be 1, but now I have an order of a soul trait that I just want to work on during the day, because it was a little off kilter the day or a couple of days before. So I just thought I would throw that out.
Oh, love that. Thank you, Karen. Wendy.
Oh, hi, everybody. Well, I could relate to what Shelley was saying about being orderly and having order in your life. And I do have order. It kind of comes naturally for me. But I noticed pretty recently that I took my order and I would squeeze out the real thing that I wanted to do. Because I had my order, right? I couldn't get out of order. So that was always last, and I never got to it. So I had some time off and I read Atomic Habits. It's very good. It's a very good book by James Clear. And I had read Bird by Bird a long time ago, which is specific to writing. And I need to finish a book that I'm writing. So I kind of reordered everything. And I left that space for that, and that little blocks of time that you guys have been talking about, Bonnie and Hobie. It's so important, because I actually started writing and I'm enjoying it. And I kind of treat myself by writing instead of typing, if that sounds logical. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Wendy. Yeah, I liked what you said. I reordered everything. Sometimes we need to just, you know, start fresh a little bit. Martin, and then Beth.
I have the same reaction as Karen had about just an internal satisfaction. So like last week, I just have a lot of keys to a lot of different locks. And I finally organized it on one list. This key goes to this lock. And then the reward was that, well, the issue evaporates. So no longer a burden. So that's the reward.
Thank you, Martin. That reminds me, I'm just jumping here for a second, Beth, but that reminds me of when I was studying order for the first time, and I realized that my bedtime was very stressful, and part of it was because I couldn't find my pajamas. And so I started putting my pajamas under my pillow, and that was like addition by subtraction. Just that issue went away, and it was so much easier for me to just go to sleep. And now my bedtime, I'm just realizing is kind of just seems to take me forever. And I'm seriously considering like writing a checklist. So I'll like do a bunch of stuff to like, oh, I forgot to do this. And it'll be just a lot of back and forth. Um, so anyway, let's jump over to Beth.
Um, I really missed you last week. And the week before, I had read about half of the chapter on order. But then it came time for the online, and I didn't finish it. So today, I finished it, and I realized that I'm pretty good about order with things, but I'm not so good about order with time. And also, when I started Mussar, I started with Alan Morena's book, and I was very good about printing out the mantras and having them in front of my workstation. And I hadn't done it for a while. I had printed a graphic with all of the traits and the mantras and the word in Hebrew, but it was so small that it really was not readable unless I got right up to it. And so today I pulled up my list of mantras from Morenas and the ones that I had devised, and I added yours. First things first, last things last, later. And I printed it out, folded the paper just right, so only the ones for order show. It's right by my workstation, so I made a little progress, and that's the satisfaction of that is the only reward I ever give myself, but it's satisfying.
Thank you, Beth. And that's a great, the practice of Mussar itself, of course, is an act of order. Because at the end of the day, this is a practice. And if we do the stuff, it will bring rewards. And if it's a fully intellectual exercise, then that's, it can be stimulating intellectually, but it's not going to bring about the level of transformation that we have an opportunity for if we really engage in practices and changing our behavior. So you're from
I'd like to
Bonnie, and then, oh, yes,
May I just quickly add,
of
I have a
course.
stack of books. How high can a stack of ebooks be? I have a stack of ebooks this high that I want to read. And I'm an avid reader, but I still don't get as much reading done in the ones that are important, the good stuff, the Mussar, the other things that are heavy reading. And I want to reorder my time so that I have an hour a day to read the important stuff.
Thanks, Beth. So we'll hear from Bonnie, and then Ted, and then Marjorie.
Very quickly, if you have an iPhone, it has reminders. And if you put the dates in, it will populate your calendar and it'll pop up on your calendar. I learned that about a year and a half ago. And I too reward myself and I don't binge. And the Netflix one with the rabbi and the shiksa are cracking me up. And I just forgot the name of it, but it's 26 minutes. Good morning, I'm done. I watched it. It's fun. I'll see another one next week.
Nobody wants this. Nobody wants
Nobody
this.
wants this. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Ted.
So hi everybody, my name is Ted, as you can see on that. New here. I did watch the YouTube of 2 weeks ago, was it? Or of last week on order, which I enjoyed very much. And I promptly did something that I have been doing lately, and that is I went over to Chat GPT and I wrote in, what exercises can I do to get more ordered? And Chat GPT, doing what it does, gave me a whole list of things: daily planning exercises, time blocking, decluttering, so on and so forth. I do recommend it, by the way. It's excellent. Of course, it doesn't do anything unless you do the work. And I immediately went out and went back to my journal. I used to, not that long ago, a month or two ago, I had been very religious about doing journaling, and then it sort of fell off. Other things occurred. So I went back to journaling and decided to set up blocks of time of things that I want to do tomorrow. Some of the stuff is repetitive for me. I go to morning prayers, so therefore my clothing is laid out the night before. It's morning prayers, it's breakfast. My weakness is doom scrolling, so I set up a time that does not allow for doom scrolling. And I very much set up instead of doom scrolling, 25 minutes just to begin with, to do pleasure reading, which I don't do often. And then 25 minutes for Torah. You have to understand, Torah is in a very broad sense. It includes science, and it includes math, and it includes anything else that I think is Torah, as is Torah. So I think
Wonderful.
partially, I thank you very much for the motivation of my doing that. I would not have done it unless I watched it. Now it's a matter of working on it and actually accomplishing it. For me, accomplishment is the dopamine hit, is the reward itself. Just to say that, I actually did that. Works for me.
Nice. Thank you,
Okay.
Ted. And great
Sure.
job. Great job. Marjorie.
In my practice of Seder, I've also learned that if I don't accomplish something, I have to treat myself with chesed. I have to be kind to myself and know that I can always jump right back on. It's not, I don't have a lifestyle that is so, I'm orderly. I get done what I need to get done. And if I don't, it's okay. And equanimity also fits in here for me.
Mm.
So it's order. Yeah, it's an interesting, there's so many phases, and I'm more interested in the order of nature.
Mm.
I find that fascinating too, and how by observing our natural systems and what occurs on a day-to-day basis, and that for me that allows divinity to play into my life, or spirituality.
Thank you, Marjorie. Oh, that's a really interesting idea. I've been thinking that we'll probably roll order into a third week because there's just so much to cover here. And I didn't even think about all the order and nature stuff that could be an interesting week to include as well. Um, so, Harry, nice to see you. you could remember to unmute, please.
Okay, we're good. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
My financial advisory days, we used to give talks to potential clients, and order was really critical for them to understand. And we used to tell this story that went something like this: pretending that you're at home and you get a knock on the door, and it's Ed McMahon. And he says, "Congratulations, you just won the Reader's Digest Award." And the award is a 3 hour um, um, a 3 hour ability to go to the Mall of America and get anything you want. It's just pick out the stores and you can get anything you want. And then, but when you get there, we're gonna take you. You're gonna leave now. We're gonna get you on a plane. We're gonna take you there. When we get there, we're gonna give you gym shoes and we're gonna blindfold you so you don't see anything else around you. You have 3 hours and 15 minutes to get anything you want. And then we give the prospects these cards, and then we would ask him, "What is the very first thing you would do? What would be the first?" And you guys can think about this if you want about what you would do. And we would get all kinds of answers. One would say, "Well, I'll run around look for a jewelry store." Another guy would say, "I'll run as fast as I can to find a travel agency." And it's just going and finding, looking. Okay, and as fast as you can. You got 3 hours. And then we would get another answer, which was very rare, but it would be, I'd go to the directory. I'd go to the directory. And then when this answer came up, we write them on the bulletin board. And I said, "Well, which one is the best answer?" And they said, "Of course, go to the directory." And why would you go to the directory? Because the directory will do two things. The first thing it'll tell you where you are. And then when you go to the directory, you will see where the jewelry store is. You will see wherever you want to get. It's right there in the directory. So the first thing of order would be to go to the directory. And that's why I gave you the 15 minutes. And then, and this is how we connected this process to financial planning. Because that's what financial planning is, the process of finding out where you are and where you're going. And that's order.
Thank you, Harry. That is a great segue to our next section. And then we're going to look at the reading that I shared today from Rabbi Shlomo Voldy about planning. And I'm also was reminded of this great quote from Abraham Lincoln that if you have 6 hours to chop down a tree, spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. That there's a lot to be said for planning and preparation, as opposed to I'm just going to run around randomly looking for a travel agent. Yeah, when Harry says it, it's like, well, you could start with the directory and see. I thought the answer was going to be I was going to take off the blindfold first because I thought they were all blindfolded, but maybe I think I misunderstood. So, but let's take a look at that again. Let's take a look at what I shared earlier. And we're going to stop and sort of discuss this as we go. So may I have a volunteer to unmute and begin reading?
I'll do.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. To maintain proper order in our lives, we must establish it with wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, and only then will it endure.
Okay, so let's just pause there. What are we seeing? Like, we could really go deep on this and say, what does he mean by proper order? But let's see, what are some of these elements to get proper order, Martin? Martin, I think you're mute still.
The first thing I find necessary if I want to accomplish something is to understand, well, what's the purpose of it or what's my goal? And then that becomes a good filter for making decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting a goal and a purpose. Absolutely.
So that's, I
Sue.
guess, going back to Abraham Lincoln, spending time sharpening the axe before I start chopping trees.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I was thinking about the word prioritize, which kind of goes in
Mhm.
with, I'm thinking wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. So when we're going to write that list, maybe we need to reorder the list, or we need to prioritize what's important
Mhm.
in our lives. That's what I got actually out of our conversation, which was really helpful to me. The
Mhm.
prioritizing and maybe reordering or, adding a soul trade as a to-do on the list. I never thought about that before.
Mhm.
Or even
Yeah.
reading something I've been trying to accomplish, put that on the list. I didn't think about that. So
Mm.
prioritizing and maybe reordering.
Yeah. Yeah. And is there a difference between wisdom and understanding and knowledge? Are there
Greg?
certain nuances? Yes.
Um, I would say we need to understand where we are in our lives, uh,
Mhm.
which is different than having the wisdom to choose wisely. Uh,
Mhm.
you know, I, I'm retired now, and I don't have the pressure of when I was working, and
Mhm.
um, and so whether I do anything at all is kind of the world doesn't really care. I care. I want to get closer to God. I want Hashem to find pleasure in my life. Um, so um, that's where I am, but that's a different place than I would have been if I were working or raising a family or
Mhm.
balancing a lot of other responsibilities.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And that's really critically important. And I'm thinking about like some of my fellow students who were in rabbinical school with me, and some of them were younger than me and still had families, and it's like, I just can't go full time right now. I just can't manage it. So I'm going to drop back to part time and being able to, having that understanding and, self-forgiveness for just not being able to do. I mean, I'm thinking of this one example, where they had to delay their graduation a year. But that was just where life put things. Martin, is your hand up from before, or is this
This is
new?
new. You were asking what's the definition or difference between wisdom and knowledge and understanding?
Yeah.
So my thoughts are, knowledge may be more of facts-based information. Wisdom is, let's see, we'll go back. Understanding might be just taking a good perspective of all the different scenarios, and then wisdom is making a good judgment on which one to execute. Those are my definitions of those.
Thank you. Thanks, Martin. I like those. It was good. Ted.
Um, very much similar to what was said by Martin. Um, it's Chachma Bina V'Da'at in Hebrew. Dot being the knowledge based, I think. Um, and the understanding is comparing the different choices that you have. That's what it would be for me. And wisdom is almost the opposite of that fact base. Once I've collected the facts and once I've compared the choices, um, there's that gut feeling after having done the work, though not before, but after having done the work, there's that gut feeling for me of what wisdom is. Doesn't work all the time, but sometimes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ted. Wendy.
Well, I just think it's interesting the way that it's put with wisdom first and then understanding and knowledge, because it made me think of a proper order. I have to gather. I have to gather. I have to gather all the information that I can possibly know about this particular thing that I'm going to be accomplishing. And at that point of time when I do collect all the wisdom and not the wisdom, the understanding and knowledge about this matter, then I might notice that I gain wisdom to know whether or not it's a possibility and it can even be accomplished. Because then once you get to that point and say, yes, it can be accomplished, then you know that it will endure. It will be something that we can actually do. So I think you have to gather the understanding and knowledge in order to arrive at that wisdom. Otherwise, you will leave steps out, I think. And then that's how things will break down. That's just a practical way of looking at it anyway.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Okay, Karen and then Michael.
I think everyone's saying the same thing here, that wisdom is really based on experience. And with that, whenever I have thought that someone was wise or what they shared was a piece of wisdom, I've always received it in a sort of non-judgmental, calm, tolerant manner. It's never something that's rushed, it's something that's explained. So that's how I think of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I like you tying in the experience, and it often we go to elders for wisdom, right? Because they've had more life experience and presumably they have lessons to teach us.
Or if
Mike?
you have just more experience in a particular area, you could be younger than somebody else. But it's having the experience, and I think it's the way it's delivered.
Thank you, Karen. Michael?
I tend to be one of those people who's very much on the side of being over-ordered. And so my struggle here is with fetishizing that. And so I'm thinking the question I've written down here is, does my order get in the way of my goals? And so for me, wisdom, understanding is understanding what the list is and what needs to get done that day and not beating myself up too much about it if I don't get it all done. But that's not stuff I struggle with. The piece for me, the wisdom piece for me, I think I experience as being open to what the day is about and being open to listening for the word of Hashem and his will rather than my will. And if I can do that, and I tend to be one of those people who works best when I feel my way into it. If there's too much of a pre-plan, I can get stuck in that. So for me, it's about letting go more than it is imposing order. I've never had a problem with imposing order. I've always had the opposite problem, which is the letting go piece. So for me, I think that's where wisdom hits.
Love that. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm glad you gave voice to that over-ordered side of things. And yeah, sometimes, I'm a San Francisco Giants baseball fan, and they switched their general manager, and it was very much like the last 6 years. It was all about the statistics and let the statistics tell you what to do. And it's a real feeling that, they lost sight of baseball and what was happening in that game and who was doing well in that game. So what if on paper they're not as good as this other person? If they're really, the manager sees they're locked in, there has to be room to let go of the plan and be on paper and go with the reality and what we're seeing and experiencing. All right, we're not going to have time to discuss this whole thing today. We'll come back to it next week, but I would love for someone just to read the rest of this paragraph. Who was reading earlier? Was that Ted? Okay.
Are we up to these two questions?
I ended
I
at
think
each
it's
of us must first.
so. Yeah, start with each of us must
Each
first.
of us must first contemplate what do I really want to accomplish in my spiritual life? Once that is carefully determined, we must ask ourselves, what am I capable of doing right now, according to my abilities, to attain my goals? Do you want me
So
to
we'll leave
continue?
that. No, that'll be it. We'll leave that
All right.
one to kind of be something maybe that we'll pick up on next week. But right now, I want to prepare us for our breakout groups. And so, Ted, maybe you could read for us this teaching from Rabbi Nicole Arbach.
In our everyday lives, we often employ the midah of Seder, with its rules and rituals to focus on the behaviors we want to cultivate. What might you do to schedule and plan to practice chesed?
Thank you. So this whole Mussar cycle, we wanted to see how these different soul traits interact with chesed, which is often translated as loving kindness. We've defined it as doing something for another without expecting anything in return. So the question is, how might Seder, which means order, how might that help us practice chesed? And specifically, how might are there ways to schedule and plan acts of chesed? And I think today people have brought up various ideas that could very much relate to that. So I'm going to get the breakout rooms together. Okay, the rooms are open. So just click join room. Once again. Okay, so welcome back. Nobody kind of came back early when I sent out the 1 minute warning. That's always a good sign. Probably could have kept going for quite a while, but I wanted to leave us at least a couple of minutes to hear from people in different groups, maybe some ideas you had about how we might use order to practice chesed, how we might plan for it, what came up.
Okay, I'll go. For me, well, practicing order, which I brought in simplicity. Hishtachpuk, the midah of simplicity. And in that, I'm trying to, simplify, I'm constantly trying to simplify my lifestyle, my environment. And part of that is purging. And so one element is donating. That is, for me, that's where my chesed, my loving kindness, and also just being loving, essentially being kind to myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
Constantly. Okay.
Yes. Karen.
My quick response was that in moments of chaos, I'm not available for chesed. So try to get out of chaos really quickly. And then it is easier to engage with chesed.
Yeah, absolutely. If we're all over the place, it's hard to even focus on chesed. Great point. Other ways that we might use planning to kind of deepen our chesed practice. I don't know if that came up for anyone. There are other things that came up, Sue.
Yes to the planning. So I recently retired from my professional photography and I used my camera to focus. So now I have to focus and I had a plan and I'm following it. And I'm also, one of my three goals is compassion. And I write down what that is. It's caring for my parents, doing clowning, which is a compassionate act, and making challah bread. So those are all C's too. I have fun with that. But that's one of my goals is compassion. But I use the order, and I write it down, and then and then that helps me to focus on what my plan is and what my goals are.
Awesome. Thank you, Sue.
Greg, will you please repeat what the prompt was? Because I don't think you put it in the chat this time.
I don't think that I did. The prompt was, um, okay.
Wrote it down. I think it's how does order help us practice Hesed?
Yeah, that's where we were. That's where it went to.
Okay, thank you.
Um, yeah, and it had started with this teaching from Rabbi Nicole Auerbach about, there's all kinds of rituals that we have in Judaism that we use for various practices. And so, how might we apply that to Chesed? Beth?
Uh, well, Karen kind of pointed out the opposite of this. Order allows us, if we have order in our time, then we can make room for acts of kindness. And also, if we have order with our things, then when someone has a need for something special, you can lay your hands on it right away to give it to them or
Yeah.
to loan it to them, whatever. Maybe have an extra one you can just give away. But if you can't find it, it doesn't help them.
Yeah. Thank you, Beth. And that reminds me that I don't carry cash anymore. And the one thing that I can't use a credit card for is to like giving to a homeless person or leaving, like I'm staying in a hotel and I'm like, oh, I usually like to leave a little bit of money as a tip for the cleaning people. And I don't have that. And some places will let you leave a digital tip and that's fine and it'll get divided out. But I'm thinking, with a little planning, I could have some cash and some dollar bills or some fivers or whatever so that I can take care of people in that way. So thank you. Yes, Sue, and
I just
then
want to add a
Shelley.
quick thing about the money. Taylor Swift gave $100 bills to as a tip after the Super Bowl to all these people working in the kitchen and working everywhere.
Ah,
I thought that was wonderful. So carry cash and have a sense of
yeah,
humor too.
I won't be tipping on the Taylor level, but good for her. That'll be an inspiration. Okay, so we're just about out of time, so we'll go speed round to Shelley and Ted, and then we will close.
I mentioned that actually saying that I'm aware that I often, when you run across that unhomed person, that you don't have the money. And so, it was from spirit, from the divine saying, Shelley, always keep some change in your pocket, always so that you can give to that person. So thank you for even bringing that up.
Thank you. And Ted, you will get the final word tonight.
The I actually make a habit of one of the first things that I do every morning is give charity. I have that ability because there's a place for me to put the money in the synagogue, but it is something that's done every single morning, not Shabbos.
Mhm,
And that means that I have cash in my pocket, by the way,
mhm.
because it's a dollar bill that goes in there. And it does come up during the day that, oh, there's another $5 I can give because I can see where that is useful to somebody.
Yeah,
But yes, I make a habit of it. It's a Seder. It's something that I do um, every
awesome.
day. Get some charity.
Thank you. Thank you, Ted. All right, well, let's do just a short meditation to close our sacred space. So everybody close your eyes and take in a nice leisurely breath and a leisurely exhale. Just take a moment of gratitude for making the time to spend an hour with these other beautiful souls on our journey together. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. If you are watching on the recording, thank you so much for being here and watching to the end. I appreciate it. We all wish you could be with us here in person next time. And if you're in another time zone or something and you have a question, just drop me an email at greg@americanmussar.com. Anyway, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Greg.